So we're here with John Mamais, the executive producer for Witcher 3: The Wild Hunt.
What's up, guy?
Okay, so first, why don't you just give people a basic description of the game?
Yeah, so it's part 3 of a trilogy about Geralt of Rivia, and so Geralt's this human who's mutated from birth to kill monsters, and there used to be a lot of Witchers, right? So it's like a dying cast of Witchers that are kind of dying out now. But he's like the legendary, the guy, he's the baddest ass Witcher of them all. And so we'll follow him through his journeys, and this is the end of like the trilogy about Geralt. And in this part, it's kind of a sequel to Witcher 2, but it's at the same time we're writing it so you can really play it standalone. We're going to introduce all the old characters again, introduce the fighting mechanics really nicely in the beginning of the game. So you got to just check it out. Yeah.
So for people that have played the first 2 games, how has this game been able to evolve going on the next-gen consoles and everything?
The biggest change we made was just to make it an open-world game, so that was technically challenging and design challenging, and that's what we've been working on for the last 3 years, just to make a really compelling, deep storyline work in a big open world setting.
Okay, so for games like this, I know sometimes inventory, I know we often get full up on things. What's the inventory system like in the game?
What's inventory? That's a hard question.
Okay.
Well, you can basically there's a lot of different things you can find in the game. So the inventory is going to be you can't put an infinite number of things because there's some weight limits. But you can store extra swords and extra pieces of armor and potions and potion ingredients and crafting ingredients and crafting recipes and things like that in there, but you have to be economical with it.
Okay. What are some of the most exciting powers that you can get in the game?
Well, you start out with like the base set. You start out with everything, in fact, but then you develop it out. So, depending on your play style, you might want to be like put all your points into sword combat, and then you can become really, really effective at swords, and you can do a lot of dismemberment, like you saw today in the demo. So you can cut people in half and stuff, and you can fight people in groups better. In fact, if you want to go in the sword way. If you want to go in the magical way, you can develop out your signs, and they become more and more powerful. And there's like alternate forms of using signs. So art and like is this concussive force, so kinetic. It's not really kinetic. It's concussive. Usually it's against one target, but as you develop it, you can use it against more targets. And Igni, like this flamethrower type power that he's got. That can also be used against multiple targets, more and more targets effectively. But no matter which direction you go, you always need to approach it from a balanced way, because when it comes down to it, he's like melee sword fighter. Yeah, and then there's alchemy as well, so you can really develop your alchemy skills and use your potions in combination with your magic and your sword fighting. So that's gonna be cool.
So if someone wasn't much of a gamer and they wanted to pick up this game, they saw it and they were like, "Oh, that looks so cool! I'm gonna try getting into gaming with this." How easy a time do you think they would have picking it up and just trying to get into it?
I think it's gonna be really easy if they choose easy difficulty, and then once they get into it and they learn all the fighting mechanics and stuff, and they can even change difficulty and play it again and experience it differently, because there's probably going to be just with main story and decision tree, there's probably going to be like 36 different ways you can play through the game, something like that, and it's open world, so it's even more. So yeah, you should get it, play it on easy and try it out, and then start over and play it again on medium, and start over again, play it on hard. You don't have to play all the way through it each time, but get comfortable with a setting that you like, and just get into it, get into the characters and get into the story, because the story is the most important thing to the game. So if you get sucked into the story everything else will fall in place.
Dave, I know you had some questions.
Yeah, so you guys added like the small crossbow as one of your weapons. Can you tell us about some of the other new weapons that you've added, or some things that the weapons that you've sort of evolved from the last 2 games?
Yeah, well, there's the Witchers are sword fighters, so swords are the most important thing, and that's what most of our work is making a really nice sword fighting combat experience. But we added the crossbow as a kind of a secondary, auxiliary kind of ranged weapon. So you could fight with aerial-based creatures, and just if something's out of range melee, you can just hit it with your crossbow, and that's and then you can do things with different, like you can upgrade crossbow. You can even coat bolts with special kinds of coatings in your preparation mode. But there are a lot of weapons that you can use in the game, but just in a really standard way. Hammers and axes and so forth. Basically, you pick up most weapons and use them. But I think most players will probably stick with their swords.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the 3rd game. I obviously don't want to know about like the finale and the finish of the game, but is this sort of like the end of the main character's like story? Like, is this like sort of a concluding trilogy, or is this like a continuing piece?
Yeah, I guess it's like the Lord of the Rings trilogy or something. So it's a 3rd book. Whether or not it ends the Geralt story or not, we haven't decided yet. So he might die at the end. In fact, then if he dies at the end, we may have to resurrect him again or something to bring him back. But we don't want to. We want to keep probably working on Witcher franchise. But this is sort of the epic finale of that sort of 3-part story about Geralt.
Are there any new creatures in this game that you're particularly excited about?
There are some really. We've already announced a lot of the creatures, and I can't really talk about the ones that we haven't announced because it's like something like marketing wants to hold back. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna really do. But there are dozens and dozens of monsters in this game.
Of the ones that have been announced, what is your favorite?
I like these. I like the combat and this water-based combat and these swamps and stuff. And I really like these hags. They're pretty interesting to fight. But I like the bigger creatures too, like the ice giant that we did, and the really creepy Leshen. I'm kind of biased. It's hard for me. I like them all, but yeah, I guess among the ones that, like in this demo. What's the coolest thing? The harpies are interesting, but they're in this demo they're really easy to kill. Mm-hmm. But in the final game, they're not going to be easy at all to kill. So these winged creatures are cool. The griffin, the griffins are really cool, and that's the one I showed at the Xbox conference, and that's a really interesting sort of design. But I guess of all the creatures, Leshen, I guess, stands out as being the coolest. He's got these really cool sort of crow attacks and so forth, and he can kind of teleport and he can use roots to attack you, and just the creepiness alone, because I kind of like creepy stuff,
Yeah.
Cthulhu stuff, scary stuff like that. So the creepier the better for me.
Very cool.
Can you talk about some of the open world aspects when it comes to things like side missions to go along with the just normal single player main arc story?
Yeah, so all the quests in the Witcher game are all going to be unique. We're not going to copy paste quests at all. So there's a certain class of quests called the monster hunting quest, which we showed at the Xbox conference, a sort of griffin hunt, and that was just one example of the way a monster hunting quest will look. But it's really interesting because you need to research. I mean, the Witchers have this like encyclopedia of knowledge about monsters, which we're going to present in the form of like a bestiary in the game. So before you go after a monster, you need to kind of research what their weaknesses are and their strengths are. So it makes it kind of a thinking approach, kind of really tactical and strategic approach to actually trying to hunt down these monsters, and that's going to be pretty pervasive in the game. This monster hunting stuff. There's other minor, we call them minor quests, and all the open world stuff. It's going to represent about 50% of the game, in fact. So that's kind of my answer.
So if someone was to just play through the story, not really do much side stuff, not really go exploring, how many hours of gameplay would you estimate?
Yeah, we're estimating about 50 hours to get through the main story.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
Let's see. Oh, and is there going to be any sort of cooperative player or any sort of multiplayer aspects of this game?
No, nothing co-op or multiplayer in Witcher 3, unfortunately. It's something that I want to do personally, is do co-op stuff. But it just fits better with what we've done in the past to continue this adventure for the main character, Geralt. There's going to be maybe some way to play other characters in the game, but not in a cooperative way.
And when will people be able to pick up the game?
So it's going to be released on February 24th in 2015 on PC, PS4, and Xbox One.
Is there anything else that you want people to know about Witcher 3?
Just get sucked into the universe and play it through, 36 times.
Nice.